Hello everyone, here I am Sureka Chaudhar. Today I will teach you the subject biology, in which in the previous class we studied or we started the chapter respiration and circulation, in which we learned the human respiratory system as well as the organs of respiratory system, then the mechanism of respiratory system, in which we learned breathing and internal respiration, sorry, external respiration. So on that basis I would like to ask something. You have to find out, the question is that why does gas exchange in the alveolar region very rapid? What is the reason behind it? Why does the gas exchange in the alveolar region is very rapid? Find out the answer, which is based on the previous topic. So also we learned the lung capacities, lung volumes. So today we will learn the next part, that is internal respiration, and the further part of the chapter. So this is the breathing in, breathing out. We already learned how breathing is takes place, and what is the mechanism of respiration, how respiration takes place, the parts of the respiration: nose, then nasal cavity, nasopharynx, pharynx, larynx, trachea, bronchioles, and alveolar sacs. This already we learned in the previous class. So unit number 8, respiration and circulation. Let's start with our topic, internal respiration. So what is internal respiration? Two components of bloods are involved in the transport of O2 and CO2. Which are the components? The mainly function of the blood is to transport of the oxygen and carbon dioxide, oxygen to throughout the body parts, tissues, muscles, while the from muscle CO2 is carried out and it is thrown out with the help of lungs. So what are the two components which is involved in the CO2 and O2 transport? These are the RBCs and the plasma. So in which first, transport of O2. How transport of O2 takes place? Hemoglobin acts as a respiratory carrier. It combines with O2 and form oxyhemoglobin. See carefully. Hemoglobin acts as the respiratory carrier. It combines with oxygen and form oxyhemoglobin. This is the compound which is formed by the oxygen and hemoglobin. And theoretically, one molecule of hemoglobin has 4 ferrous ions, each of which can pick a molecule of O2. So how many oxygen can carry one molecule of hemoglobin? It can carry 4 molecules because it has 4 valency. You can see one molecule of hemoglobin has 4 ferrous ions. So one ferrous ion is combined with one oxygen. So simultaneously it can carry the 4 oxygen molecule at a time. So see the reaction: hemoglobin Hb plus oxygen 4O2. 4, why 4? Because it has 4 sides to combine, so that's why 4O2. It gives Hb4O2, that is oxyhemoglobin. Understood? Of the total oxygen transported, only 3% is transported in a dissolved state by the plasma. See, of the total oxygen transported, only 3% is transported in a dissolved state by the plasma. The remaining 97% is bound to the hemoglobin present in the RBCs. about 97% of oxygen is transported with the help of hemoglobin. This is the very important. Remember this. Hemoglobin acts as the respiratory carrier. So it has the high affinity for O2 and combines with it to form oxyhemoglobin. This is we see in this reaction. It forms oxyhemoglobin. Oxyhemoglobin is transported from lungs to the tissues where it radially dissociates to release O2. See, this is the last reaction, Hb4O2, that is oxyhemoglobin, which transported from the lungs to the tissues where it is radially dissociated to release O2. It dissociates into a hemoglobin plus 4 oxygen. 4, why 4 come over there? Because hemoglobin has 4 sides, 4 oxygen molecule he can bind at a time. So 4O2. This is the internal respiration. However, the degrees of saturation of hemoglobin with O2 depends upon the O2 tension, that is the partial pressure of oxygen. And what are the conditions for it? Or we can say facts of the degree of saturation. It is 100% saturation is rare. We cannot say 100% saturation of hemoglobin and oxygen takes place because of the partial pressure change. Maximum saturation of 95 to 97% is at partial pressure of oxygen in alveoli, that is 100 mmHg. mmHg means millimeter per mercury. So next, the condition or fact we can say, degree of saturation decreases with the drop in partial pressure of oxygen. See, degree of saturation decreases with the drop in partial pressure of oxygen. Once the partial pressure decreases, the degree of saturation also decreases, which begins the dissociation of oxyhemoglobin. At 30 mmHg of partial pressure of oxygen, only 50% saturation can be maintained. So this is the important, and the relation between HbO2, that is oxyhemoglobin saturation, and oxygen tension, that is partial pressure of oxygen, is called oxygen dissociation curve. This oxygen hemoglobin dissociation curve is a sigmoid curve. Sigmoid, it is like S shape, that's why it is called sigmoid shape, and it shifts towards the right due to the increase in hydrogen ion concentration and increase in partial pressure of carbon dioxide, and rise in temperature and rise in diphosphoglycerate, which is formed in the RBCs during glycolysis. It lowers the affinity of hemoglobin for oxygen. The enzyme diphosphoglycerate, which is formed formed during the glycolysis, which lowers the affinity of hemoglobin for oxygen. So oxygen is released in the tissue level. Now the next is Bohr effect. It is nothing but the shift of oxyhemoglobin dissociation curve due to the change in partial pressure of carbon dioxide in blood. What is Bohr effect? It is nothing but the shift. You can see the curve of hemoglobin saturation. It is somewhat sigmoid. So this is the Bohr's effect. Then Haldane effect. Haldane effect is the oxyhemoglobin functions as an acid, we know. It decreases pH of blood due to increase in the number of hydrogen ion concentration, and hydrocarbons changes into water and carbon dioxide. See, this is the important. Due to the increase in the number of hydrogen ion concentration and bicarbonate changes into water and carbon dioxide. In the alveolar, or we can say at the alveoli, what happened? The Haldane effect. The partial pressure of O2 is high and the partial pressure of carbon dioxide is low. That's why oxygen binds with the hemoglobin, which is done at the alveolar level. And in the alveoli, where partial pressure of O2 is high and the partial pressure of carbon dioxide is low, so oxygen binds with hemoglobin. But in the tissue level, what happened to the tissue levels? But the partial pressure of oxygen is lower and the partial pressure of carbon dioxide is high. So hemoglobin does not hold as much as oxygen. It releases oxygen for diffusion into the tissue cells. So this is the Haldane effect. What happened in the Haldane effect? The partial pressure of oxygen is high at the alveolar sacs and the partial pressure of carbon dioxide is low. That's why the oxygen binds with hemoglobin, because the partial pressure is high. But in the tissue level, the partial pressure of oxygen is low and the partial pressure of carbon dioxide is high. So VHB, that is hemoglobin molecule, does not carry the or hold the oxygen molecule. So it releases the O2 for diffusion into the tissue cells. This is the Haldane effect. Do you heard about the carbon monoxide poisoning? What is it? It is nothing but the affinity of hemoglobin for carbon monoxide. It's about 250 times more than the oxygen. See, affinity of hemoglobin for carbon monoxide is about 250 times more than for oxygen. In the presence of carbon monoxide, hemoglobin radially combines to form a stable compound, carboxyhemoglobin. That's why the hemoglobin is blocked by carbon monoxide and preventing oxygen from binding with hemoglobin. This is thus the less hemoglobin is available for oxygen transport and depriving the cells for oxygen. This is the carbon monoxide poisoning, which can lead to the death, which is very dangerous. This is the transport of O2. Now you can see this, the picture, oxygen release and carbon dioxide pickup at the tissues, and the oxygen pickup and carbon dioxide release to the into the lungs. These two diagrams, observe carefully. The oxygen, partial pressure of oxygen is high at the lungs. You can see it the below diagram. The partial pressure of oxygen is high and the carbon dioxide is low. That's why the carbon dioxide is released into the lungs. While the tissue level, see above diagram, in where the partial pressure of oxygen is low and the partial pressure of carbon dioxide is high. That's why the carbon dioxide is picked up by the hemoglobin. So this is the Haldane effect, or we can say transport of the oxygen. Now next, transport of carbon dioxide. Carbon dioxide is a radially soluble in water and is transported by RBCs and plasma in 3 different forms. See, carbon dioxide is transported by the 3 different forms. What are they? See, first is by plasma in solution form. Plasma which is present in the blood, right? So carbon dioxide dissolved in the plasma, which is only 7%. 7% is only 7% of carbon dioxide is transported in a dissolved form as carbonic acid. You can see the reaction, carbon dioxide plus water. It is a reversible reaction and it forms the carbonic acid, and carbonic acid again dissociate into the carbon dioxide and water into the lungs, or you can say at the alveolar level. Then the next is by bicarbonate ions. Transport of carbon dioxide by bicarbonate ions. About 70% carbon dioxide released by the tissue cells diffuses into the plasma and then into the RBCs. See, 70% of carbon dioxide released by the tissue cells diffuses in the plasma and then into the RBCs. In the RBCs, carbon dioxide combines with the water in the presence of zinc-containing enzyme, which is carbonic anhydrase, to form carbonic acid. Which enzyme? Carbonic anhydrase. In the presence of carbonic anhydrase, the carbon dioxide combines with the water and it forms the carbonic acid. See the reaction. Carbonic acid is highly unstable. It is a highly unstable compound, so it dissociates into hydrocarbon and hydrogen ions in the presence of enzyme carbonic anhydrase, leading to large accumulation of hydrocarbons inside the RBCs. The reaction you can see, carbon dioxide plus water, which is reversible reaction, and the highly unstable compound, that is carbonic acid, is formed, H2CO3, which is carbonic acid. Again, in the presence of carbonic anhydrase, it get converted into, or we can say it get dissociate into hydrogen ions plus hydrocarbons ions. This is the highly unstable reaction we can say. Now the next is chloride shift or Hamburger's phenomena. What is chloride shift? To maintain the ionic balance between the RBCs and the plasma, chloride ions diffuses into the RBCs. This movement of chloride ions is known as chloride shift or Hamburger's phenomena. The hydrocarbons ions that comes into the plasma, which joins to Na plus or K plus, which forms the sodium hydrocarbon or potassium hydrocarbon to maintain the pH of blood. The very special, you can say, very important role of the hydrocarbons. This movement of chloride ions is also known as the chloride shift or Hamburger's phenomena. Hydrocarbon ions that comes into the plasma, which joins to the Na plus or K plus. The reaction you can see, hydrocarbon ions plus Na plus, which gives NaHCO3, that is sodium bicarbonate, and hydrogen ions is taken up by the protein. Protein is nothing but hemoglobin. So Hb that is hemoglobin plus hydrogen ions, it gives reduced Hb. It dissociate into the reduced Hb. So these hydrogen plus ions might be expected to lower blood pH, but they are buffered by hemoglobin by the formation of deoxyhemoglobin, that is reduced hemoglobin. At the level of lungs, in responses to the low partial pressure of carbon dioxide of the alveolar air, hydrogen ions and hydrogen bicarbonate ions recombine to form carbonic acid, and under the influence by carbonic anhydrase yields carbon dioxide and water. So what happened at the level of lungs? The partial pressure of carbon dioxide is low, right? So what happened? The hydrogen ions and bicarbonate ions recombine to form the carbonic acid, and under the influence of carbonic anhydrase, it gives carbon dioxide and water. So you can see reaction below. This is the reaction. Bicarbonate ions recombine to form carbonic acid. The reversible state, hydrogen ions plus bicarbonate ions, reversibly it forms the carbonic acid. Again reversibly, in the presence of carbonic anhydrase, it gives carbon dioxide and water at the alveolar level. Then third is the by red blood cells, transport of carbon dioxide by the red blood cells, that is RBCs, which is 23%. Nearly 23% carbon dioxide transported by the red blood cells. Carbon dioxide binds with the amino group of the hemoglobin and form a loosely bound compound, carbaminohemoglobin. This molecule readily decomposes in region where the partial pressure of carbon dioxide is low, which is at the alveolar region. We know at the alveolar region the partial pressure of carbon dioxide is low, so which releases the carbon dioxide. Understood? Now the fourth is cellular respiration. We are learning mechanism of respiration, in which breathing and external respiration we learned in the previous class. Now we learned the internal respiration, and the fourth is cellular respiration. What is cellular respiration? It is the last step taking place inside the cell, where the food is oxidized and ATP is generated. It can be shown by two steps. What are they? The oxidation and the phosphorylation. What is oxidation? Oxidation, it is the breaking down of complex organic molecules into the simple inorganic molecules with release of heat energy. You can see C6H12O6, which is glucose. It gets converted into the carbon dioxide plus water plus ATP. What is 686 kilocalorie? It is nothing but the energy, that is ATP. So this is the oxidation. And the next is phosphorylation. What is phosphorylation? It involves trapping the heat energy in the form of high energy bond of ATP molecule. ATP is used to carry out vital life processes and so is called as energy currency of the cell. Phosphorylation is the important step, or you can say important chemical reaction in our body, which involves trapping the heat energy in the form of high energy bond of ATP molecule. So what is the reaction? ADP plus IP, that is we can say 1-phosphate. ADP is the diphosphate, adenosine diphosphate plus 1-phosphate is plus 77.3 kilocalorie, which is ATP. It gives ATP, 1 ATP molecule. This is the phosphorylation, and it is very important and carry out the various vital life processes in our body. Now we learned all the 4 mechanisms of the respiration. So that is breathing, external inspiration, internal inspiration, and the cellular respiration. So these are the 4 mechanisms of the respiration. Now the next part is the regulation of breathing. How regulation of breathing takes place? So what is regulation of breathing? Respiration is under dual control. We all know the nervous system and the chemical system of our body. The human adult breathes about 12 times per minute, while a newborn about 44 times per minute. The normal breathing is an involuntary process Involuntary means which is not in control of our, which is happen continuously, which is involuntary. We cannot control on the that process. Steady rate of respiration is controlled and are by the neurons located in the pons and the medulla and are known as the respiratory centers. So you can see in the diagram pons and the medulla, which are the centers of the respiratory, or we can say respiratory system. It regulates the rate and depth of breathing. What is the function of pons and medulla, or we can say respiratory centers? It regulates the rate and depth of breathing. It is divided into three groups. The dorsal group of neurons in the medulla, that is inspiratory center. The ventrolateral group of nerves in the medulla, which is inspiratory and expiratory center. And the pneumotaxic center, which is located in pons, primarily limits inspiration, which slow wave sleep and rapid eye movement sleep. What is the function of pons? It is helpful in the primarily limits inspiration as well as slow wave sleep and the rapid eye movement. Anesthetic center in the medulla, you can see in the diagram, anesthetic center, which is shown here. Anesthetic center in the medulla region is antagonistic to the neurometaxic center, which is controls non-rapid eye movement, sleep and wakefulness. What is the role of? It controls the non-rapid eye movement, sleep and wakefulness. During inspiration, inspiration means inhale the air. When the lungs expand to a critical point, the stretch receptors are stimulated and impulses are sent along the vagus nerves to the expiratory center. It then sends into inhibitory impulses to the inspiratory centers. The inspiratory muscles relax and expiration follows. As air leaves the lungs, the stretch receptors are no longer stimulated. Thus, the inspiratory center is no longer inhibited and a new respiration begins. These events are called the Hinge-Brunner reflex. The Hinge-Brunner reflex controls the depth and rhythm of respiration. It also prevents the lungs from inflating to the point of bursting. The respiratory center has connection with the cerebral cortex, which means we can voluntarily change our pattern of breathing. Voluntary means we can control our breathing. We can control breathing in the form of, like, we can breathe very fast, we can breathe very slowly. So that is voluntary action. Voluntary control is protective because it enables us to prevent water or irritating gases from entering the lungs. But the ability to stop breathing is also limited by the build-up of carbon dioxide in the blood. So this is the mechanism, or you can say regulation of breathing, which is controlled by the respiratory center in the brain region, which is pons and medulla. Now the modified respiratory movements. What are they? Some respiratory movements are different from the normal movement, which help express emotions or clear the air passage of the movements. Some may be reflexes, but other can be initiated voluntarily. Example, coughing and yawning. So these are the modified respiratory movement. We can cough, it is the voluntary action. So next part is the common disorders of a respiratory system. The given table you can see in the picture, the table which is the list of some common respiratory disorders, their symptoms, causes and treatment. Let's see one by one. Emphysema, which is the breakdown of alveoli and shortness of breath. These are the symptoms of emphysema. Emphysema. The causes of emphysema are the smoking, air pollution, and what is the treatment? Quit smoking. We can quit the smoking to cure the emphysema. Then avoid polluted air. Administer oxygen to relieve symptoms. Then the next disorder is chronic bronchitis. Bronchitis is, what are the symptoms of bronchitis? Bronchitis symptoms are the coughing, shortness of breath. The shortness of breath is the most common symptom of all the disorders, you can say. The causes of it are the smoking, air pollution. When we treatment we can follow the by quit smoking, avoid polluted air, if possible move to warmer, drier climate. Then acute bronchitis. Chronic is the temporarily, and acute means which is very deeply, we can say. Acute bronchitis, inflammation of bronchi, shortness of breath, yellow mucus cough up. These are the symptoms of acute bronchitis. What is the causes of it? It can cause by the viruses and the bacteria. What is the treatment? If bacterial, take antibiotics. Cough medicine, use vaporizer. It will help in the acute bronchitis. Then sinusitis. The symptoms of sinusitis are the inflammation of the sinuses, mucus discharge. Sinuses are the present at the you can say nasal cavity. The inflammation of sinuses are the symptoms of sinusitis. The causes are viruses and the bacteria, the viral infection and bacterial infection. The treatment is again the bacterial. If it is bacterial, they take antibiotics and decognitants. Use vaporizer. Then laryngitis. Laryngitis symptoms are the inflammation of larynx, vocal cords, sore throat, hoarseness of voice, mucus build up and cough. These are the very common disorders. Everyone facing these disorders day by day. What are the causes of it? Viruses and bacteria again. If bacterial, take antibiotics, cough medicines, voice rest. Then avoid irritants like smoke. The next is pneumonia, which is the inflammation of lungs, which is ranging from mild to severe. The cough and fever, shortness of breath, chills, sweating, chest pain, blood in mucus. Nowadays we see coronavirus. What is it? It is nothing but the type of pneumonia. Then causes of pneumonia are the bacteria or viruses. We know coronavirus, or we can say COVID-19. It is the virus. So consult physician immediately. Antibiotics, cough medicines, stay warm. These are the treatment. Then next is the asthma. Asthma, it is the constriction of bronchioles. What are the symptoms? How can we? Then mucus build up in bronchioles. Periodic wheezing, difficulty in breathing. These are the symptoms of asthma. What is the causes of it? Allergy to pollen. Pollen are the pollen grains which are present in the various plants. Some foods, food additives, pet, hair, etc. are the causes of asthma. Treatment: Use of inhalant to open passageways. Avoid irritants. The next disorder is occupational respiratory disorders, silicosis or asbestosis, inflammation, fibrosis, lung damage. These are the symptoms of occupational respiratory disorder. The causes are the long-term exposure to dust particles, silica and asbestos particles during occupation. The treatment are the protective mask and gear during work. These are the some disorders, its causes, its symptoms and treatment on it. So next topic or next point is artificial ventilation. What is artificial ventilation? It is also called as the artificial respiration. It is the method of inducing breathing in a person when natural respiration has ceased or faltering. If used properly and quickly, it can prevent death due to drowning, choking, suffocating, and electric shocks, etc. The process involves two main steps: establishment and maintaining an open air passage from the upper respiratory tract to the lungs, and force inspiration and expiration as in mouth to mouth respiration by mechanical means like ventilator. So what is ventilator? It is a machine that supports breathing and is used during surgery, treatments for serious lung diseases or other conditions when normal breathing fails. It is mainly used in hospitals as part of life support system. Ventilators do the following. What is the role of ventilators? It get oxygen into the lungs, right? Then it removes the carbon dioxide from the lungs. Also it helps the patient to breathe. This is the role of ventilator. Now the next point is transportation in living organism. How transportation takes place in the living organism. We know all living organisms, whether unicellular or multicellular. Unicellular are the single cell, multicellular are the multicells. Show an important property of exchange of material with their surrounding as well as between various parts of their cell or body. Organisms take up oxygen and nutrients from the surrounding. These are circulated within the body for various metabolic activities. The waste generated within are given out into the surrounding. This is the transportation. It has two types, that is intracellular transport and extracellular. Intra means within the cell, extra means outside the cell. So transportation in organism and animals occurs by diffusion and by active transport between the cells. This mechanism is suitable where the surface area of body is large and the distance between part of the body in the organism is extremely small. Cyclosis is the streaming movement of the cytoplasm. The example is paramecium. Cyclosis is the process we can see in the paramecium, amoeba, then root hair cells of many plants, and the WBCs in animals, where the cyclosis is the streaming movement of cytoplasm shown. It is for transportation within the cell or intracellular transport. In the sponges and ciliarate, sponges are the pore bearing animals. The surrounding water is circulated through the body cavities. It has many pores, so surrounding water is circulated from the body cavities. In flatworms there is parenchymal circulation. In roundworms there are no blood vessels and the body fluid is moved around the viscera by contraction of body wall and muscles. This is extracellular transport. What is extracellular? which is takes place outside the cell. So these are the transportation of living organisms. So you need to find or I have one work for you. You have to find out the type of circulation which is present in amphibians and reptiles. Find out the type of circulation in reptiles and amphibians. So let's stop here. What we learned today? The remaining part of the mechanism of respiration, that is intracellular respiration and cellular respiration, as well as the regulation of breathing. Then respiratory disorders we learned. So I hope everyone understood. Now by doing exercise, or we can say by walking, by going gym, we can stay our lung is healthy and fit, out of dangers and out of disorders. So stay fit and exercise regularly. That will help to keep your respiratory system well and function well. So thank you.